6:30 seems so much earlier now that it's light outside still.
It does, doesn't it?
Okay, Karen, I think we could, oh, am I on mute? No, I'm not. Karen, I think we can go ahead and get started if you want to go through the, start to respond to what we raised at our last meeting.
I'm sorry, I had muted myself. I apologize for that. So
No, that's okay.
I listened to / watched the last meeting, and I know that there were several questions that were raised, and I thought it might be beneficial to go through and address them. So one of the issues that I had that you raised was with respect to a quorum. Now, when you think about a quorum is the minimum number of people. Let me back up, minimum number of members of the body that are required to be present in order to transact business. And so normally that is one more than half. So if you have a 7-member board, you would have 4 members would be required in order to transact business. You need 4. And so I believe that that is what your current charter provides, correct? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. So were there any other questions about a quorum or?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Well,
So
I can't remember when it came up. Did it come up in reference to the form of government, or that wasn't that part yet?
no.
Okay. No, I don't have it.
So when I say it was an issue, you all picked that out and talked about it for a few minutes. So I just wanted to make sure that I addressed it. If you had any further questions about it. One of the other issues you raised was a reference in the charter to a journal of proceedings. And there are some jurisdictions that have that in their charter as well. And generally your journal of proceedings, what it's intended to mean is your official record of the city council meeting. So it would be your minutes, your official legislation, the ordinances, resolutions, and things of that nature. Now, as to whether you have a quote unquote journal of proceedings that's maintained by the city clerk in the office is something I don't know the answer to. That would be something you would have to ask. Since that meeting, were you able to determine if that's in fact the case?
No, but I think that that's something that's simple enough that we can follow up with the council about.
Okay, so but that's the question that was raised at the last meeting, I thought at least, was really what is this journal to which this refers? So that's what it is. So another I'm sorry. So should I move on to the next? So the quorum consensus. Consensus versus voting. That was another issue that you raised. And so consensus is when you attempt to get general agreement among all the members of the body. When you do a vote, as you know, you just need a simple majority vote to carry a motion or to carry the adoption of an ordinance or resolution. So the use of the term consensus, I must say, I tried to think about when my jurisdictions have done anything by a consensus vote, and I couldn't come up with anything other than sometimes to adjourn the meeting, somebody may say, is there any opposition to adjourning the meeting? And that would be, I guess, the same as calling for a consensus. But generally speaking, when you make a motion, when you adopt an ordinance, when you adopt a resolution, it's going to be by a voice vote. It's not going to be by consensus. Another issue that kind of ties into that is you all had questioned kind of resolutions versus ordinances versus motions. And so ordinances are your laws. They are codified in your code, and they have the highest level after your charter, they have the highest level of importance. Then your resolution is generally a statement of an official position or a adoption of a policy, perhaps. You may proclaim a holiday by resolution. You may proclaim a congratulations to a resident who's turned 100. Those are the types of things you would do by resolution. You could do them by motion if you didn't want to have something formal and in writing. With respect to resolutions, you would also perhaps, maybe if you wanted to draft a letter to Park and Planning and have a position on with respect to a development that's proposed in your jurisdiction, you could have a written letter that maybe you would approve by motion. So I don't know if that helps, but normally, most jurisdictions, I'm not going to say all because I know there are some exceptions, but most jurisdictions have a different procedure with respect to ordinances versus resolutions. So, ordinances generally require 2 readings. Some may require a public hearing. Resolutions generally are of a lesser status than ordinance, and so they would oftentimes be introduced and adopted at the same meeting. Now, I did find that in the city of Mount Rainier, and I did not do an exhaustive search of all jurisdictions, but I did find that in the city of Mount Rainier, they make a distinction between simple resolutions and substantive resolutions. And the substantive resolutions are mostly what seems to be referred to as the charter amendment resolutions, which are governed by state law. So that has an entire procedure in state law that must be followed in local government article. They then say that the simple resolutions are to make appointments to city committees, set forth positions of support or opposition of the city government on a particular subject, to express congratulations or condolences, or other matters of non-substantive or personal import. So I thought that might be of interest to you, given the discussion that you had at the last meeting with respect to resolutions. Does anybody have any questions about that particular issue? Okay. Then the last issue that I noted in listening to your meeting was whether or not you could take action at a work session versus a regular or special meeting. And that is really kind of up to the jurisdiction. A lot of jurisdictions, if they have an item on a work session for discussion. So let me back up. Work sessions often are the time at which issues are brought to the body for discussion before they're moved to a regular agenda, if you will, for action. There are some jurisdictions that have their work sessions, and as part of their work sessions, they have a special legislative meeting noted there. And so it kind of pulls out and brings everyone's attention to the fact that there is legislation on the agenda that may be addressed or adopted or introduced or what have you at that meeting. And those were the issues that I had pulled out. I did not, or let me back up. I do recognize that there was some discussion regarding the form of government, and I can go into that a little bit. I pulled some examples from some other council manager form of governments that might be helpful to address some of the issues you were talking about, but I'll let you take over and tell me what you'd like to hear.
So sorry, Karen, could you go back to the point around the resolution and the distinction between ordinances and resolutions and the potential for us to classify simple resolutions versus more substantive resolutions? I think I'm not entirely clear on what would be the difference between a substantive resolution and an ordinance. It sounds like they would have the same level of impact or importance.
Well, the distinction made in the example that I gave you was a reference to where state law actually governs. So a resolution, even though a charter amendment resolution is called a resolution, it is not by any means like a typical resolution that might come before council, because the manner in which it is to be approved and the process for a charter amendment is in state law. So that must be addressed that way. And also like an annexation resolution, that would be another substantive resolution that would be done in accordance with state law, rather than, let's say your contracting threshold is, I think you said it was $6,000.
Yeah.
So anything above $6,000 needs the approval of council. Some jurisdictions may do that by motion. Many jurisdictions do that by resolution. So it might come to a work session. There would be discussion. Let's say the example you all gave at the last meeting was the purchase of vehicles. So let's say you had the purchase of a vehicle that was $50,000. So you may have all the backup information provided to you at the work session and a general discussion with about the fact that you're going to consider a resolution to approve all this at your next regular meeting. So the work session would be where you'd go through all the issues, make sure it was ready to go. Then at the next meeting, at your regular meeting, you would be able to introduce a resolution approving that purchase. And so you might have a contract that you would be approving and authorizing the city manager to sign, or something of that nature would be the type of resolution that might be in the normal course of business, as opposed to what I would call the substantive as set forth in the Mount Rainier example.
Would it be fair to say that it would be at our discretion to define what those different types of resolutions were if we were in fact adopting that type of classification, like simplified versus substantive, that we can say these are the elements that would constitute a substantive resolution versus, say, an ordinance?
You could. I don't know that it necessarily is required to be in the charter. But we could look into that. I mean, clearly Mount Rainier, when they adopted theirs, they thought that they wanted to make two separate procedures for different types of resolutions. So there's nothing illegal about doing that. That's certainly within your prerogative.
Maybe another way to ask the question is there anything that specifically lays out what an ordinance is? And the reason why I'm just kind of drilling down on this is because as I think about the different types of resolutions we have, there are some resolutions that are high dollar amounts because, as an example, some of the resolutions that we put forward for use of the ARPA fund, right? Like, and we're writing grants. Those seem like those would be ones that we would want more process around because of the amount, the level of impact. And we do them as resolutions, but I guess I'm wondering, why aren't they ordinances? Like, I'm not really clear what makes something an ordinance versus a subsequent, if we go with that terminology, a substantive resolution.
So generally, your ordinances are going to be your laws. They're going to change things that are going to be in your city code, right?
Okay.
Or an example might be if you are going to exercise the functions or powers and duties set forth in the local government article, or maybe even some other articles within the annotated code of Maryland, then you would have, it would be an ordinance making power, such as when you sell property, you have to declare the property surplus. There's a way to do it, and that's generally done by ordinance. But you wouldn't codify it. That wouldn't be in the code, but it would be something that would still be accomplished by way of ordinance.
Okay.
Does that help, or?
A little bit. It helps me. It helps me
Ms.
figure
Rock,
out. Go ahead, Mr. Hearn.
oh, I was going to ask, so in also with ordinances, aren't they always usually associated with a fine or penalty or court if they're violated with most ordinances?
So we have the option under state law to make the violation of our ordinances either a municipal infraction or a misdemeanor, depending upon the nature of the violation, right? So yes, most
That's what I'm trying to
ordinances,
currently do.
most ordinances carry with them a penalty for the violations.
Okay.
Okay.
Whereas with a resolution, it's really just the intent of the council or an approval of an action, such as spending a certain amount of dollars on something else.
Correct. So when you look at where you get as a municipal corporation the authority to impose fines and penalties, it's in connection with the violation of your ordinances.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, you were going to go on to the form of government.
Oh, so yes, I know that there were some questions about the form of government. And so I looked at a couple of different city manager, council forms of government. And one of the ones was Bowie. So if you look at Bowie's, the mayor in Bowie serves as a chairperson of the council. The mayor may take part in all discussions and may vote on all matters coming before the council. So that's a general description of the mayor's duties there. Then I went down.
I'm sorry, Karen.
Yep.
In Bowie, how is the mayor selected? Is it by the other council members or is it there an election for the mayor?
An election for the mayor.
Okay.
Okay. Then this, I believe, is Mount Rainier's. So Mount Rainier says the mayor is a member of the council and shall have all the rights, duties, powers, and obligations of a council member as prescribed by this charter. And the mayor shall serve as the council's presiding officer and may participate in all discussions and shall have a vote on all matters before the council. The mayor shall have no power. I'm sorry, that's right. The mayor shall have no power to veto.
And how is that mayor selected?
My understanding is they vote for the mayor separately as well. I'm looking to see. So pursuant to the provisions of this charter, this is the Mount Rainier again. The city shall have a city manager form of government. All legislative powers of the city are vested in a city council consisting of the mayor and 4 council members who shall be elected as provided in the charter. The mayor and council members hold office for a term of 4 years. Okay. And then, where was my other one? I looked at College Park because they are a mayor, council, city manager, council form of government. And the mayor there is a member of the council and has the rights, duties, powers, obligations of a council member as prescribed by the charter, and is the presiding officer. So I just wanted to kind of point those things out to you.
I assume you're bringing that forward because what we discussed was that the mayor would be selected by the other 6 council members,
Right.
having a separate election where the citizens choose the mayor.
The only jurisdiction that I'm aware of, and again, I haven't researched every single jurisdiction in the state, but the only other jurisdiction that I know of where they don't elect the mayor separately is in the city of Greenbelt. And I think I mentioned that before, because in the city of Greenbelt, they have all legislative powers are vested in a mayor. Let me see. Yeah, so all legislative powers of the city shall be vested in a mayor and 8 district council members, 2 from each district, and is known as the mayor and council. And it is the legislative body. The mayor's elected. Well, I think I'm getting confused because that's College Park. I apologize.
I
So
thought
that's
Greenbelt
College Park.
was- sorry.
Greenbelt is at the first meeting following a regular election, the council chooses one of its members as mayor.
Mhm.
And then chooses one of its members as mayor pro tem. So that's the only one. And I'm sorry for getting College Park and Greenbelt confused there. But that's Greenbelt is the one where they choose the mayor.
Okay. So there's precedent for what we are proposing as the mayor being selected by the other 6 council members or by the 7 council.
That there is at least one jurisdiction, yes.
Okay. One second. No, we can't hear.
Erica,
Are you saying anything? We can't.
I
hear you.
can't hear you too good. Did you say something?
No, Karen, are you having a hard time hearing me?
You are very faint, yes.
I think that is a Zoom problem.
Huh?
I think it's a Zoom problem because I'm on camera like the whole big call in meetings on the computer.
Can you hear me good?
I can hear you. Mhm.
I did speak to Blainsburg. I think, they have, she said they were hybrid, although the mayor is, officiates the meeting. They have 5 council members. They do election for the mayor. The mayor, has no veto power and no power, voting power, except to break a tie or to vote on the budget. The city manager answers to the council, not the mayor. He or she doesn't supervise anyone. And let me see, what else did she say? Oh, the salary is just slightly higher than the council's, probably like, likened to the way we are. So she said it's not substantially higher. So I'm thinking it's probably the way ours is in Glenarden. But they definitely do have election for the council and for the mayor. And she said, she just said this, even though the city manager pretty much run the city, she said it's hybrid. That's the way she classified it. I spoke to I think she's might be the mayor temp. Oh, she said they have the mayor, and then the mayor is the mayor for that hosts the meeting for that whole 4 years, and I think the pro temp is selected annually,
Okay.
and that would be out of the council.
So I think with that, the one thing I see is that if we were to only allow the mayor to have voting to break a tie, then we would need to have really 8 members. Because if we just have 7 elected members and one of those members is not allowed to vote, then you're gonna have an uneven number of voting members. It would be
I mean, well, they have 5 and 1, so evidently it worked. I didn't get a chance to call her. I didn't get a chance to talk to her again.
Yeah, well,
before.
they have 5 and 1, then they have an odd number. They have an odd number of voting members, and then the mayor.
No,
being-
they have. Yeah, so we have 7, and then
Right.
the mayor will be 8.
No, the way that we have been saying it is that it would remain 7, and one of those 7 would be the mayor.
Okay,
But I think it depends on what we're gonna do. If we're saying, which we have been saying, that the mayor would be a voting member, then there would be no need to add another. We could keep it at 7, because then it would be even. If we want to say that the mayor is only gonna vote in the case of a tie, then we should keep 7 council members and then have an 8th elected member as the mayor.
No, you should always have an odd number. You shouldn't have an even number
No.
because you will always end up with ties. You
I
should
know,
always
that's
have
what
an
I'm
odd.
saying. So if we have 7 people and one of those 7 people is the mayor, then that leaves 6 people who would be voting if we go with the mayor not having any voting rights, which is exactly what you're saying, Mr. Herring, that those 6 people, those even number you could always have a tie.
No, I was saying that I thought originally it's supposed to have been 7 members, one member being the mayor, but the mayor still having the same authority and powers as a council member to vote.
Right. That's what we did discuss, that all 7 would be able to vote on all things. What Ms. Ferguson was just saying that Bladensburg has is that the mayor is not able to vote on things. They're only able to vote in the case of a tie
and the budget.
in the budget.
I mean, I guess overall, wherever we go with form of government, what are the intentions? So are we just going to basically resolve to the council voting on it, or is it or is stuff going back out to the citizens? So because I know, like, talking to 9 people is not the whole city, but if I was to say I talked to 9 people, 7 of them want to vote for a mayor
And I would be in agreement with that. I think
versus vote for council members, and then that mayor come out of the council. So with that said, and I don't know, I mean, how are we gonna resolve that?
I mean, I think it's a matter of what is the will of the council, because I agree with what you just said. I think continuing to have an election for the mayor separate from the election of the council members would be less change for the citizens, right? They're accustomed to voting for the mayor. I think we can still achieve the same objective, which is to have 7 voting members, one of them being the mayor.
Okay, so you're saying instead of having 7 council members, we only have 6 now.
If you'd be voting for 6 council members and you would be voting for 1 mayor. And collectively, those 7 would represent the legislative body.
So basically, instead of 4 at large, there'll be 3 at large and then 1 representative for each ward.
Well, I mean, we haven't discussed that yet. I'm just talking in total numbers. That would still give us 7 elected members, one of them being the mayor. The only difference would be that instead of the council members selecting the mayor, the citizens would be the ones selecting the mayor.
And then-
Go
Go ahead. Oh, and then the
Go
pro temp would be coming from among the council, which would be selected by the council and the mayor.
Well, I think it sounds like we have options. I mean, it sounds like we could vote for the mayor pro temp, just like the mayor is voted for. It sounds like the mayor pro temp could be selected amongst the, by the council, just like we do with the vice president now. I don't really have a preference, except that I think that we should have the mayor be elected by the citizens and not from within the council members. But obviously, we would need to get a consensus from the rest of the council if the 3 of us are in agreement.
What were you saying, Mr. Herring?
Oh, I was saying, it seems like, I mean, we're in this issue, we just gotta figure out next step or next procedure for, I mean, we're gonna have 7 no matter what. It's just a matter what 7,
Right.
6 council members and the mayor, or yeah, we're gonna just have 7 council members. I think it was mentioned in one, whichever council member get the highest number of votes will be the mayor, something like that. I mean, me personally, I think that actually, I mean, we haven't gotten to that part with the ward representation, because I think it actually should be like 2 for each ward and 1 at large. And maybe whoever wins at large will be the mayor, as a council member. That way you have fair representation across the board, and everybody got to work together, because no one jurisdiction have more than anybody else. So,
I mean, that sounds fair to me. To have 2 council members from each ward, and then are you saying to have the mayor elected separately?
At large.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mayor can be separate, run at large, and that'll be the mayor. But it would still be a council member with all the powers of a council member, but she would just be they would just have to run at large for that position.
So,
And then the council can pick a mayor pro tem from the body.
Yeah, what do you think of that?
I don't know. I mean, I look at large as they are representing all wards. So say, for instance, if somebody from a ward 1, 2, or 3 was doing whatever, they was doing something, me being at large would step up and, serve or assist that, the representative. I mean, I don't know why we have to have 2. Especially, so the 2 is not necessarily based on the size needed. It's just the fact that, I mean, what is the basis for that?
Well, 2 would give fair representation no matter what your size is. Each person would have 2 representatives for their ward. Also, I mean, in larger wards, as you've seen before, like with Ward 1, when almost all 7 council members came from one ward, either lived in Ward 1 or came from Ward 1. And I don't feel that was a fair representation for the rest of the city, because again, you're born and raised in Ward 1, you're going to have an affinity, even though you worked at large for the city. I still think that people who actually live in a ward on a daily basis know what's going on in their ward.
I mean, I can agree with that.
And I just think that, 2, and 1, that way, no one ward has a majority of the votes. Everybody got to work together across the board, across the wards, in order to get something done. Everybody got to work together that way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing I will say is I remember I think it was like about five of us in Ward 1 and 1. But
Right.
the thing is that just, that's who the citizens voted for. I mean, they voted for him. We had people from all different wards, but they voted that. It just so happens. But I mean, I do see, for me, as running large, I don't know about anybody else, is that running at large, the whole Glenarden is gets my attention. But I understand what you're saying.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that that would help bring more equal representation, particularly because our wards are not the same size, right?
Mhm.
So each ward having the same number of representatives, I think ensures that, as Mr. Herring is saying, that there's equal consideration for the issues of that ward. I think the reality is that any piece of legislation that is brought forward, whether it's by a ward member or an at-large member, it affects all of the citizens. I know that I have it. I don't believe that Mr. Herring has, or Councilman Hairston has, put forth any legislation that is just for our ward. But we
Right.
do represent the interests of our ward. So I think
Right.
2, 2, and 2 is fair. And I think that having the citizens elect the mayor is what, it seems to be a good response to what the citizens were expressing in the public hearings that we heard, that they, want to maintain that ability to elect the mayor. Can you hear me? You're leaning in, so I'm leaning in. Can you hear me, Council Vice President?
I didn't hear the last thing you said. I mean, you asked a question.
I was making sure you heard me. I couldn't tell if you could hear me.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I think, are we in agreement with that then?
I'm not.
No? Okay, what would you?
I'm just saying, I mean, either way, I mean, I can think about, I mean, either way, I guess it doesn't matter because we still have to bring this back to the whole council. So,
Right.
at this point,
I
there's
think
a
just bring the
choice.
options and let the council decide.
That's
We
what
got
I'm
the
saying.
options. Yeah.
That's
bring the
what I'm
options, let
saying.
the
I
council
mean,
decide.
and when I say that, it's not that I don't, I'm not, I didn't know whether we was determining it ourselves. That was where I was at.
Oh, no, it's just gonna be what we're gonna put here. I think. That what
Okay.
we're gonna
Oh,
put
yeah.
here is
You can
the
put it there
option,
and, yeah. Uh-huh.
Right, it's the option. So I'll just for now put a note, right? Because we have 2
Okay.
options.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So and that was on the representatives, but are we in agreement on the mayor being elected separately? The 3 of us.
I mean, if we're gonna do the equal ward representation, I'm fine with that. Otherwise, I would just, my first inkling was to basically let the council pick from amongst themselves, So, I mean, I'm fine with that if we're gonna have equal representation across the wards. And then they get elected in, basically at large, really, so.
I'm just gonna put a note here because
So the at-large would be, a
The
mayor
mayor
and one council member?
No,
no?
it'll be, the mayor would be the at-large council member technically.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'll be the at-large council member, and they would be the mayor with the same powers as a council member.
So basically, the duties, I mean, like the council, they legislate, and then the mayor is more executive, so would the mayor be considered a legislator?
yeah.
Yeah, the mayor will be a legislator. She won't be an executive. Remember, the city manager will handle all the administrative and executive functions. And the mayor won't have any veto power. It'd just be a straight vote on items now, moving forward in this form of government.
So they just won't be a need to veto anything. Either
Right, there won't be any veto.
either it
Right.
passes or it doesn't.
Exactly, up or down, yeah.
Right.
So again, that one. Figure out how I think we can, once we figure out the options, then we can determine what the language is.
No, actually, that right there, that ordinances actually requires 5 votes. Ordinances only require 4 votes. 5 votes only if you want to override a veto or if you want to bring it as an emergency. But it only requires 4 votes.
Okay. And I think, Karen, this is what you were talking about earlier, the difference between a consensus and a vote, but it doesn't sound like that there's a requirement around when something requires a vote versus a consensus.
No.
I mean, historically, what we've done, just since I've been on council for a while, we usually gave a consensus if somebody wanted to set up like a yard sale on city property, or they wanted to do a car wash. Some people would come and say, "Oh, we'd like to do a car wash on the city property," and the council would be like, "Okay, yay or nay," give a consensus on whether they agree with that. Like little things like that.
Okay.
I mean, I think
Okay.
also with gratis events, like with the Gold Run, can they have it for gratis? And we'll be like, okay, what does council feel?
Mm-hmm. That sounds similar to the language that Karen was telling us about a simple resolution versus a substantive resolution. How do you all feel about adopting that language for ourselves so that we can make the distinguishment between what requires, when is a consensus acceptable versus when is a vote required?
I don't think I think it makes it more complicated when you start loading it in with, this type of resolution, that type of resolution. And I think that because the only substantive resolution that we actually have is, as Ms. Ruff said, is, like charter resolutions, which are mandated by state law. And I think as this council, since I've been on this council, I don't think we've really done any. We may have done one consensus, maybe, if that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we don't really practice consensuses with our group,
So if I had to classify them, like I would consider something a simple resolution, like if we're appointing somebody to a committee or like the garbage contract, I would consider those things more like simple and administrative in nature, and citizens can certainly, I'm sure, find things to comment on, but those are not typically things I think citizens would comment on versus, like the community garden, that I would think would be more of a substantive thing. It's using city money, it's using city property, and that would require resolution. So that's how I would kind of make the distinction, because I think that some of the things that we're putting through the resolution process, we're applying more rigor than is necessary, particularly because if we're having, when we interview people, it's closed meetings. So the citizens don't even have the benefit of, the information from the interview to be able to make comments about their interview, to really weigh in, right? Like we didn't have anybody talk about the city manager at the public hearing last night.
Well, I think when you're dealing with people, you should have something in place, a piece of paper in place, especially like with the housing authority, which should have staggered terms, which they're not. We're in violation of state law in that case. I think that we should always have some type of paperwork when we're bringing people into the city to work on behalf of the city, whether it's volunteer or committee or whatever, what have you. Just with the Caraway case, I'd rather be overcautious than not, just to do a voice vote and say, okay, yeah, you can come on board, you're fine. I'd rather have something in writing. Me personally, that's just the way I feel. I just think, you need to have a paper trail. People have come to the city and said, hey, do y'all have any resolutions on who y'all appointed to, who's your police chief? Can y'all find that resolution? Who's this person sit on a committee? This one woman, Teresa Banks, she served in a number of volunteer capacities, and they actually came to us to look for legislation on things that she worked on because they're doing a historical perspective on her, you know, and we'd have to go back in archives and try to find it. But I mean, people do come to the city to look for stuff like that, especially when it deals with certain people, you know, who may become, you know, who may have a little notoriety, you know, further down the line, you know. So I just
No,
don't see, I mean, I don't see where there's an issue with it because again, it's just a resolution, you know.
Right, and just to clarify, I agree with you that we should have some paper. I think I'm referring more to the process, right? In that bringing the resolution forward, like I'll use, you know, the city manager as an example. We met in closed session to interview her. Then we brought the resolution to a work session. We brought it to a public hearing in which nobody had any comments, and then because we didn't want to wait for the regular meeting to vote on it, we had a special regular meeting. So we kind of took that through a long process where nobody had any comment on it versus us just bringing forth the resolution and then voting on it. It would still be documented, but we could have handled that, in my opinion, in one night.
Well, me personally, I think citizens need to know what their government is doing for transparency's sake. I honestly believe that they need to see what we're doing and know what we're voting on and what we're discussing. When we try to push things through like really quickly in one night, they get very suspicious. They're like, what are y'all doing? They already don't know what we're doing. They're already asking, you know, what are y'all doing? I don't know what my city is doing. You know, I don't get any information. You know, now we're pushing legislation through. And that's what happened before, why the charter changed to add public hearings, because again, the council at that time was pushing legislation through, like bring it that night, the night of the meeting, and putting it on the floor, and citizens didn't know what it was about, didn't understand what it was about, and the council at that time was not really giving them any information, and they voted on it.
Mhm.
You know, and they felt left out. They felt like they weren't involved. They felt that their tax dollars are not being represented fairly, and they did not know what their tax dollars were doing or what we were doing with their tax dollars. So
Mhm.
I just think, you know, transparency is big in government, and I think, you know, if we got to do it, we got to do it. If it makes the people feel comfortable, they should feel comfortable. I know we have to sit here and go over it and bring it to work sessions and all this other stuff, but you know, if that's what they want to see, that's what they want to see. I mean, again, you know, we work for the people, not for ourselves. You know, they gotta feel comfortable that we're doing what the best job for them that we possibly can.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that we do anything in the dark, and I'm only suggesting that there are certain types of resolutions that would not go through that whole process. And I think that's the question I'm asking. Are there any types of resolution which, in my opinion, I would consider them more like administrative, you know, more documentation than those that rise to the level of public discourse and you know, use of public funds, etc., that should go through as we've talked about before, you know, having citizen comment, etc.
I guess with me, I mean, my thing is, you don't know what citizens going to like and what they're not going to like. You know, it could be a volunteer that they had that you bring forward that they may not care for. They may not. That may bring out a whole lot of citizens. You know, once they do a little background check on them or do their little research on them or Google them or whatever. You never know what the citizens' feeling is going to be on any piece of legislation or how involved the citizens are going to be when it comes to the floor for discussion. Or, you know, at a public hearing. So, I mean, we can't arbitrarily say, okay, this is this, so it ain't going to have much discussion, but you never know. I've seen some pieces of legislation that I thought was going to skate on through, people hit the roof, you know, over. And I'm like, okay, what's the big, you know, what's the issue with it? You know, so, I mean, it does, you know, it's kind of hard to gauge what is and what is not going to cause citizens to speak up on a certain situation. So, I mean, so that's why I think is differentiating. You know, just put it out there and let them have it. If they don't speak on it, they don't speak on it. At least at least we can say we gave them the opportunity, you know, and they can't come back and say we didn't. And that's one thing that I've learned, you know, over time is that, you know, don't know if the meeting's 5 minutes long, okay, well, we gave you an opportunity. You can't come back and say we didn't, you know, I mean, you know, so it's kind of hard to gauge what gets a reaction out of people and what doesn't. Depends on the topic and what it is.
I mean, my take on it is that, I know I like documentation and I like, I like clarity on things, but we do have minutes, and there's a proper way to do minutes. Even the way we have been doing minutes, even from the time I came to last administration, that is not the proper way to do minutes, that you write down every single thing somebody says or whatever. Minutes are really, for, you write the actions and what happened in various cases. The other thing is, that kind of, I was wondering about was that when we go to hire or select certain employees like the HR, treasurer, chief, I mean different city manager, things like that, we do resolutions. And so, and then on the other hand, we can't discuss employees, well, that's personnel, so we can't discuss that. But then the citizens can weigh in on who, who's going to be hired. The other thing is that I don't understand the difference between the employees, some employees of the city being brought to their names and everything being brought to meetings and work sessions, but there's no resolution to unless I don't know about it, that 4, 5, 6 police are any of the police. We just meet them when they're sworn in. But they are employees of the city. And so I don't understand the distinct. And this was before me, so I don't understand. I never did understand why, we look up and we have police officers that we, of course they was vetted, of course, but we didn't know anything about them until we either saw them on the street or, well, at one time we was getting invites to the swearing in. So what is that? I don't know. Is that something for you, Councilman Herring, that just the way they did those? That's just a force of habit, or what? Is there a particular reason why our police officers are not, brought up via resolutions as well, and you discuss at a work session and a public hearing?
Well, the charter only requires the department heads that are listed in the charter: the police chief, the treasurer, the city manager. I think we did public works director because he's a department head, and then HR. Anybody below that, the city manager brings them on board, and the personnel manual gives the city manager the authority to hire, anybody underneath those levels. Even the personnel manual says any department head has to be approved by the council.
And committees.
Committees we've just brought the committees because people wanted to know. Well, with committees, I think people just wanted to know who was being seated on committees and just having discussion with committees. Even with the treasurer, the department heads, I think when you bring a resolution, it's very minimal, like we did with the city manager. You don't attach no resumes. You just but they used to do that. They actually used to put the resumes on there, and I'm like, no, you don't attach resumes.
That is not good, because I know
Right.
the last one did, and I said, no way. I'm surprised people didn't get sued by that, because you got people's home addresses and all kinds of stuff on there.
Right, all kinds of stuff on there, yeah.
Yeah.
So, like the Ethics Commission, the election board, so you're saying that they really don't, I thought that they don't really have to be brought up by resolution. That's just something that was being done.
The election board, that's actually by charter. Remember the charter says that you should have an election board of 10 members approved by the council.
Right.
So that needs to be approved. And the Ethics Commission also, you should have 5 members approved by the council. So that needs to come to the floor for a vote for those 2 committees. One, because they're very important committees.
Oh, I agree
some of
with
the
that,
other
but I was
committees.
just wondering, and then, like the youth department, we did that. I think that, but I'm just saying that when we have, so we don't have to, every committee, we do not necessarily have to bring, but you're saying it's more of a, just so that they will be aware who's going to be serving.
Well, actually, I think section 1301 of the charter requires all committee members to be approved by the council. They're supposed to bring the committee as well as bylaws, and it would be
Okay, yeah,
approved by the
yeah,
council.
okay. Well, that answers it then.
Yeah, so I
So
think. the
that,
second-
well, do we want to continue to do that, I guess? Well, we too far now. Okay,
Well,
okay.
I think what we're highlighting is that we certainly agree that there are provisions of the charter which stipulate that the council has to approve things. But there appears to be inconsistency in how that approval is documented. So the council has to approve gratis, but we do not bring forth resolution for gratis. We approve that, you know, typically by consensus, sometimes not even in a public meeting. But then other things we do bring forth in informal resolutions and take it through the process. So maybe it's worth having a conversation with the broader council, maybe when we have our team building meeting to discuss and decide what are things that require a resolution and what are things that are acceptable for it, you know, to be more informal, just so that we can at least have consistency. And for the areas that don't need to have a resolution, if we can identify any of those, and just making sure that that's clear as well, so that citizens are aware, you know, of what things they can expect to hear about in public meetings, and then what are things that they may not hear about, unless we're saying that they need to hear about everything, in which case we have more things that we would need to make resolutions for than we even have now.
There was something, that I wanted to bring up, back up, B, where you have the pro temp. And it reads pretty much that way in the charter. I mean, if you read it, I know what the intentions are, what's been done, but if you really read that, it could be read as to say that, which is different than what we do. Like, for instance, our vice president, it said at its organizational meeting on the second Monday of June following its election, the council shall select. Well, we only have an election every 4 years. So the way this reads is I mean, to me, and it, it's been said, you know, by others, that whoever is elected at that time would do the 4 years, because we only have it's only one second Monday after a June election per 4 years. So either that's gonna have to be changed.
Well, these two, we have to talk with the council about what we're going to do. So that will determine then what the language is. Because
Okay.
if we say that the pro temp is going to be elected as well at large, you know, that's going to be a difference. So whatever it is that we end up discussing and agreeing upon as the way to handle the mayor and to handle the mayor pro temp, then we'll write the language accordingly.
Well, at large, I mean, that would just be on the ballot. It just would be two. I mean, that wouldn't have anything to do with,
Well, it would, because if they're elected, then we wouldn't be selecting them at the organizational meeting.
Well, I just feel that the mayor pro tem should be just elected by the council. Because
mean,
he's
I
just
don't have a
somebody to serve
problem.
in place of the mayor. Mhm.
okay, but okay, I mean, I don't have a
But
problem
that,
with it. Go ahead.
yeah, but I do understand what you're saying. And I said that has been a discussion I've had since I've been on the council, because it sounds like once you're in a position, you're in a position for the full term.
Exactly.
That's the way it's written.
And so I was
And
just saying that regardless of how we do it, even if we make a notation to deal with that, because right now that's the way it's like that, even though that's not the way it has been practiced. That, you know, it's like every what is it, June, July, or something like that.
Every
They-
June,
Okay, so
every June, which that's not what the charter says. The charter basically, it reads that, you know, whoever's elected that first meeting in June afterwards, that they would be that for the rest of the duration of the administration, or I guess, of course, if something else happened. But
So
just
I just put, I took out following its election. So at its organizational meeting on the second Monday of June each year, do we want this pro temp to be elected each year? That's what it sounds like.
I mean, we can put, I mean, you can do that or put in parentheses, or, I mean, yeah, it's just a matter of, I don't have a problem with, having election, every year, but I mean, if somebody wanted to be technical, the charter don't read
Right.
the way we are doing it. Like, for instance, when the administration come, whoever was elected that the day that they were sworn in, they will hold that seat unless they gave it up or something else happened. So
Okay, so we'll
just want to
discuss
be, whatever we decide, we just want to just make a note so that we can address that, so that we could be, we just want to be more thorough in everything, so specific, really spelling and coloring things out.
So it sounds like the three of us are in agreement. It would be the mayor pro tem selected by the council each year.
Yeah,
We could probably just go on ahead and just change that.
You said each year?
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem. Yeah, I just didn't like the way, because it just wasn't reading the way we probably had in our mind. That's fine.
Okay. We got that. Oh, we already addressed that. Okay. So we stopped here at the mayor. We basically took out that whole section. We were going to say the salary, and that's where Council Vice President, you got the information. So we don't know what the amount is, but
I mean, I would think that is whatever we decide as a, because our salaries, because I think even with Bladensburg, I think theirs was maybe some $100 more than ours, but it's not a substantial, large amount of money between the council and the mayor. And if the mayor is still going to be elected in the same manner, but okay, but I don't know. I mean, what do you think about that, Councilman Herring?
I don't see where the mayor will be doing any extra work, honestly. I mean, yeah, they have to sign some documents, they have to do that a little bit more, but I mean, they're still gonna be technically a council member.
Okay, so
voting
they'll be
rights.
council. Okay, so basically, because if it's going by, the mayor just do everything that we do.
yeah,
Right.
but this part is not saying how much the salary is. This part is just saying that they will receive a salary. So
Yeah,
whatever
but
it
it did come, but the question did come up, I think, in the meeting, was there a
Right.
difference in the salary? So, whether the salary just, that comes to a salary and everybody gets the same salary,
Mhm. But I
and
think that wouldn't be in the charter though. That would be like when you're voting on the salary.
We had to
This
pay-
doesn't
we-
say
Last
how
time we
much
passed the
they-
resolution,
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
we
say
did.
that again?
Yeah.
we passed the resolution last time for salary increases.
Right. It's not here. It doesn't say in the charter that the mayor will make more than council.
No, that you remember that came up, and I told you I would check on it. Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was in the notes on the last document we had.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then the mayor shall receive an annual salary as set from time to time by an ordinance passed by the council in order to business. No change shall be made in the salary for any mayor during term. Which the ordinance may change. Okay. Right. So the mayor shall see that the ordinance of the city are faithfully executed and shall be the chairperson of the council. Do we want to say anything else?
I think it should preside over the council.
Shall preside over.
May I
Yes,
say one
please.
thing about the salary? I do have some examples of the differences from when I looked into these other jurisdictions, but I do want to offer an alternative. So one of the jurisdictions does not establish the salary, but rather says the mayor and council shall receive an annual salary which shall be equal for all council members, except that the salary of the mayor may be higher. Salaries of the mayor and council shall be specified from time to time by ordinance, provided, however, that the salary specified at any time that the mayor or council member takes office shall not be changed during the term for which the officer was elected. I just want to say that you don't necessarily have to put amounts in your charter to tie you into anything. You can allow it to be dealt with otherwise, so.
Right, because I think it sounds like the only difference between what we have and what you just said is that sentence around the salary of the mayor may be higher.
Yes, and maybe it's not committing you to anything. It's leaving it up to the elected body at the time. But I just wanted to point that out, that kind of what you have is okay. The other jurisdictions that I looked at did have amounts in their charter. So for example, Greenbelt says the mayor at 12,000 and the council member at 10. College Park had the mayor at 10.5 and the council members at 7. But I think that I don't know that I would go so far as to put the salaries in the charter, but to keep it more broad, like authorization as you have there.
Right. Thank you. So should we say something else about the mayor's role other than presiding over the council? Like them being, I don't know, the ceremonial, I'm not even sure what the right language I'm using, but like they're the person to cut the ribbons and that type of thing. Karen, do you, like, what type of language do other municipalities have around?
So, one has that the mayor is a member of council and shall have the rights, duties, and powers and obligations of a council member and serve as the presiding officer and may participate in discussions and have vote on matters before council, which is very open-ended, and we had talked about that before. Then, much like that, there's the other jurisdiction has the mayor is a member of the council and shall have all rights, duties, powers, obligations of council members prescribed by the charter and may participate in discussions and may vote. So again, they're very broad statements, not necessarily identifying any particular
Well,
I'm sorry.
so would it be safe to say then if the mayor is a part of the council, then when we get to the section where the council, basically everything should be written the same? If we're doing the same thing?
Well, no, because I think you're going to want your mayor is probably going to be the ceremonial head, right, of the jurisdiction. So there are. So now that we know that this is the form of government that you want to go with, we can look at exactly how detailed you want to be in your charter, right? Because the way you have it here, it was trying to outline what the mayor's specific powers and duties were. And it may be that in a mayor council manager form of government, you can be a little less articulate in the charter about what the mayor's duties are, but be more concise. That's the word I'm looking for.
Well,
And
I
so
think
this-
so, because I think it's only going to end up being like this one sentence, because it wouldn't make sense for the mayor to report to the council on the condition of the municipal affairs if the mayor is part of the council. I would
Right.
think we would take this out. Unless we want to say the mayor each year shall report to the citizens the condition of municipal affairs, like a state of the city address.
I think, yeah, report to the citizens would be more appropriate.
And then they're not going to have any veto power. I mean, obviously they will attend all of the meetings if they're on the council. I mean, I don't think this makes sense that they're on the council too. Do we want to keep this one in? The mayor shall have such other powers and perform such other duties as may be prescribed. I don't know where else it would be prescribed.
Well, I think so, because you remember it further on in the charter, the mayor is required to sign contracts.
Okay. Okay, so we can keep that in. And then the acting mayor is the mayor pro tem. When the mayor is absent for a period of less than 30 days. Also active. Are absent from the city in the period. The duties of acting mayor shall be exercised by who? We ran out of people. What happened? There's some language like where you appoint, where the rest of the council chooses from amongst itself who the person will be. I've seen that language before.
I can send that to you.
Okay,
I think it's in our charter too somewhere.
I thought so too. Um, And absent is considered not physically present in the city? Or what does that mean? Because what if they don't work in the city? I don't know what's absent.
I'm sorry, which section are you looking at?
Right here, when the mayor is absent, I just want to know like how do we define absent?
That could be, I mean, yeah. I mean, because we had mayors who got sick and just couldn't attend meetings, and they couldn't perform their duties. So they technically were absent from their duties, but they were still in the city. But but somebody else had to step in for them for a minute. They couldn't attend. But a lot of times it's when they leave the city for a certain amount of time. They go on vacation or something like that.
That is generally what that's intended to address.
And we haven't had an issue with this, but if anybody's reading this, they could be let me make sure that it's clear. Physically. For more than what, 24 hours? I don't know, what do we want to say? Sure.
Well, it says for a period less than 30 days. So it give you 24 hours or, 29 days.
But if the mayor works outside of the city, they are absent from the city.
Well, that's just being a little technical. I don't think we've ever ran to the point where somebody can't go to work and they saying they're out of the city. I mean, I think that, I think everybody knows that, if they're going on vacation, they're out of the city. That's basically what it is. I don't think nobody's gonna hold anybody to that.
I feel like we should. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm saying, especially since we keep in mind that their work, that's it being a little technical. Then we do have the city manager doing the bulk of the city stuff, and then you still have the pro temp. But there are times when our current one was gone for 3 days. but, you know, we didn't get wind of it. I mean, so that type of thing, you know, if you're going home or going to, you know, going somewhere out of town, family reunion or something like that, even if it's 2 days or 3 days, it should be made known. And, you know, the pro temp steps up. I mean, that's what I think, because anything could happen
Mhm.
in 48 hours, 72 hours.
Right. Once we get that language that Karen said, it'll be fine. You shall include co-signing city check that execution contract and other legal documents. Okay. While acting as mayor, the pro shall not perform the legislative function
Yep.
of the, well, they would. They don't have any other role. The mayor pro temp is only to,
I was gonna say, wouldn't D come out because it's they're
Yeah.
now a council member?
I think so. Are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
We'll take that out. And now the city manager, I'll do it. You can continue, I'll be right back. So is it even this anymore? We don't need to say the mayor or the council, right? We could just say the council.
Yeah, shouldn't the mayor come out?
Is this all right? Does this all make sense? I just about mayor and just. You guys hear?
Yeah.
Okay. Who's gonna do the annual budget message? Should it still be the mayor?
He would still be the mayor.
Okay.
Mhm.
I wonder if we should, I wonder if this will confuse people where they'll think that the mayor is separate from the council because we're using the language like this. Like maybe.
Well, they're
with
gonna
the
think,
city-
well, they're gonna vote for them, so they're gonna think they are.
Right, but what I mean is in here, right, like, should we say, instead of taking mayor out altogether, and shall be responsible to the mayor and council? Mayor and council,
I think if you do that, you're gonna once again have a city manager that feels that she gotta report to the mayor.
okay,
This is what we're running into now.
okay. Do we need to say anything right here about the $6,000 threshold? Because here it seems like they could just go ahead and make the purchases without there being a resolution. If it was in line with the established budget and that there are funds available. Because what
Well,
we've
they-
been
they-
doing. what we've
They,
been
I mean,
doing-
well, mhm, go ahead.
What we've been doing is that even when it's in the budget and we have the allotted funds, if it's over 6,000, we're still passing another resolution.
Right, which is what the charter requires under the purchasing policy.
Mhm.
Anything
But
over
that's- but they
$6,000.
reference that here,
You could say per authorized purchases. And I mean, you can say in line with the established purchasing policies. Set forth in section 80, whatever.
we know what the form. Yeah. Form other duties. As we'll get they require and may be required elsewhere in this charter.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can you go back up to 501, I think it is? I'm sorry I let you go so far with that. Okay, so you're changing it to be the council shall appoint and the council shall confirm a city manager. I think you want to take out and the council shall confirm. Because if
Okay.
you're appointing it, you don't need to confirm the person.
That makes sense.
The next meeting, I'm gonna come with a magnifying glass so I can see see it better.
And also in that section that you were referencing, section 818, it should be 818.
Okay.
You don't like the 8 whatever?
Yeah, if we could have left it there, then boy, that would have brought up a whole lot of controversy. It would have put that all over the place.
Yeah, I figure if we change it, let's be precise.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
for that reason too, I think we need to go back and look at these, because I think some of these references might be old. There may be resolutions that have since even
Oh, yeah.
amended that resolution. Oh, not a big bowl like that. Yeah, that's fine, just get a spoon and just eat it right out.
But once we send this to what you call it? The people that do our codes codification, they'll reference all the changes in there. They'll take all of that out and put the new references in
Well,
for the
they,
changes that
Good.
were made.
will they do it right? Or do we need to check?
They're pretty good. Yeah, they're pretty good.
They just need to get the stuff. I guess, yeah.
Yeah, they did it in a timely manner. E-code, yeah.
Okay. The city manager shall be subject to separate annual performance evaluation. No, that doesn't make sense anymore. It's not separate. City manager shall be subject to an annual annual
Shall be
performance
subject
evaluation to be performed by the prepared and adopted by.
Shouldn't that just be prepared, prepared by the council? You can take out adopted, since we don't have to.
So how are we gonna handle this now? Should it be like any council member shall submit to the council a resolution?
Hmm.
I guess instead of it being the mayor submitting, that any council member could bring forward a resolution to consider removal of the city.
Actually, look like all the A should come out, because if you
Let's
look
just
at
take it
B.
out.
Okay,
Yeah. Because that probably will be in our section. I mean, well, the council section. The council.
I'm letting my daughter eat a whole pint of ice. Stay away from me. So so okay, so we took that section out. So a resolution would have to be brought forward. So is this like something that has to be written up and stating all the reasons? To me, this seems a little getting into personnel matters, because if we write this up in a resolution, all the reasons for removal, can we do that?
That, I mean, the attorney, Mr. Kapinski advises that when we do that, we have to do all of that in closed meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Can't do it, we can't do it, and that's when you voted on it in closed meeting. You don't take that to the floor.
Absolutely.
But what will citizens be able to see the resolution?
No,
No,
it's personnel.
Okay. Do we need to say any of that in here?
I think I would take it out. We can,
could that go into the personnel handbook?
Yeah, I feel like we wouldn't put forth a
Yeah.
resolution for this.
I would take that out.
We have to be able to say something about how the city manager can be terminated.
Do you want me to look into how some others, and again, some of this stuff could be addressed in the code as opposed to the.
Oh, yeah.
And so, for example, I looked up really quickly while you were doing that, what some of the other jurisdictions have done, and they have pulled out a lot of the city manager functions and put the details in an ordinance with kind of the broad brush strokes in the charter. So
Okay, so we'll come back to this.
I can send you, if you would like, I can send you the links to the 4 jurisdictions I've been looking at. So when I'm not looking at your camera, I am looking at my other computer that has these things up. But I can send you those links so you can just get a sense of what other jurisdictions do.
Okay, but suffice it to say, this we don't want to happen.
Mhm.
I guess my thing also, some of that I think should stay, because I mean, we're just gonna, if you're gonna terminate them, I mean, if you're gonna consider termination, it basically gives you can suspend them with pay, you know, or are we saying that we're gonna address that somewhere else? Or are we just gonna eliminate that Karen, are you saying, you know, an ordinance would suffice?
Yeah, I'm
And just
saying
have a
that,
general,
that perhaps that the charter's not the best place to outline
that.
the process.
okay, because so the code, it'd go into our code, I guess, under personnel.
Yes, it could go in a code, yes, it could. And
'Cause I
that's what
think
I'd
right
like to
now-
send you some samples of how these other jurisdictions do it. Not because you have to do it the way others do it, but it gives you a sense of how others have structured it to see what your preference is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think, because right now we got it in both ways, because I think that the chief is actually in the code under personnel on how you remove the chief. But the treasurer and the city manager are in the charter.
Okay,
Maybe we want to make that clear then. I mean, I don't think our intent, Karen, is to say that there's no procedure for removing them from office. I just think we want to make sure that the language is appropriate for how we would do that.
right. So, I mean, in the one that I looked up really quickly, there's just one sentence and it says removal. The city manager may be removed by a resolution approved by a vote of 6 members of the mayor and council. So that's one, right? So I can send you some of these things that might give you some suggestions. I mean, another one, when I do a search for it, it's not in the charter. Right, so that leads me to believe if there's anything, it's in their code.
So we'll look at
Here's one with it in the code that just simply says the council shall appoint the city manager who shall serve at the pleasure of the city council. However, the council may remove him or her by a majority vote of the entire council upon 30 days written notice to the city manager. So it doesn't require resolution, it just requires a majority vote.
which would seem what we're saying, because if we put it in a resolution, it is documented.
Well, if you do it by resolution, you have to put information in there.
Right, and it has to be public, doesn't it?
It would be.
Right, so we don't,
'Cause
that's the part that we didn't want.
So you may want to, like I said, this provision that I just read to you is not in a charter, but rather in the code. Under the city manager title, and then there's several sections like his duties and some other things.
We'll look at the other stuff, and see if we can, where we want to put it, but I think we got the spirit of what we're going for right now. And
Okay.
then the acting city manager, well, it's not. Because this actually never happens, like we never get a recommendation for who should be the city manager and the council confirm it. It's just like by default always goes to the chief of police.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Councilman Herring, you've been around longer. Has there ever been a resolution that was put forward that said that the acting city manager would be the chief of police?
No, it's just, it was assumed. It used to be actually the treasurer. It used to go to the treasurer and then the chief was the last.
Mhm.
So it depends on who's in office, you know, and what they do. I mean, they would come and ask that, you know, the treasurer, they would ask council, you know, can the treasurer serve as the acting, you know, and the council would be like, fine. But
Oh,
normally
yeah,
it used to be
I don't
treasurer.
even remember, sorry, I'm sorry.
Mhm. Go ahead. Yeah, it used to be treasurer, then police chief. I don't know when it flipped to police chief. I think when Chief O'Donnell came on board, they started doing the chief, then treasurer.
Mhm.
But it was just word of mouth.
Yeah, I
It was
don't
just word of
remember
mouth,
ever
yeah.
being.
It wasn't a resolution.
And
'cause a lot of
even
times
I
it would
even
just be-
remember us getting an email saying, I recommend that the chief of police be acting city manager and the council saying, yeah, we agree with that.
But see, I guess also they look into, they also refer to the personnel manual, which says that the city manager or his designee can carry out these duties. So the city manager was using that saying, okay, well, I'm gonna be out of the office, so I'm gonna let this person do it while I'm gone.
Mhm.
So they were using that too.
Okay.
And I think this mostly was for if we were gonna have a long-term absence of a city manager. That's really what that was really put there for, because a lot of times what would happen is we would have a vacancy and there was nothing in our charter to put in the acting city manager.
Okay.
Should we put something in there?
This is what we put, this acting city manager is what we put in, what was put in the charter too in 2006 to address that issue.
Right. But, okay, so, okay. And just the city manager would choose,
Right.
yeah, okay.
Who they felt was qualified, especially if they're only gone for a day or two. But the council also has the right to revoke that decision and put who we feel we want in there, because that's what it says too.
Where, and actually, then I think what it needs to say is the city manager may recommend and the council may confirm a qualified city administrative officer as acting city manager, because it's their designee, right? Did I hear that right?
Well, I think it'd be the city manager may designate, so it'd be in line with the personnel manual.
Correct.
And the personnel, you know.
What does this mean? Qualified city administrative officer.
Do you want it to say a qualified city administrative officer?
Yeah, that's what I was just saying.
That sounds good.
It sounds good, but what is that even?
Well, the administrative officer, I guess is either but I think you said qualified, I probably mean the department head. That's what it actually means.
A department head, yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, when I look at a qualified city administrative officer, you wonder, does that mean somebody who's certified through the
Right.
whole process for MML does through the local governance? So I think that you're better off saying if you're accepting a department head in that position as a designee, which is what most jurisdictions will do for those short-term absences. I think that's better than referring to the city administrator, qualified city administrative officer.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Do we want to stop there? Because we're about to go
Yeah,
into
that-
the powers of the council.
Yeah.
We covered quite a bit. This is good. Okay, so we have some follow-up questions.
Okay. Is it possible for you to send me a copy of that document?
Sure, sure. So we have these changes already, those straight through. We're just gonna bring it to the council, which option, the mayor being elected at large or the mayor being chosen amongst the council. And then that will dictate what we put here for mayor, and the mayor pro temp is fine already. We are in agreement with that. Talking about the type of resolution So we can make sure we have consistency. Then we took all of this out. We're just gonna add. And Karen, you're gonna send us the language, and I think it's also somewhere else in our charter, the language around the council choosing amongst itself and the mayor pro tem.
Correct.
Okay.
I have a couple of notes of information I'm going to send you, and I will get that information together and send it to you the beginning of next week.
Okay. And this is out, that's right. We'll just need to make sure that it's still section 818 by the time we are done. You'll send us the language and let us see how it looks in an ordinance versus resolution.
Mhm.
And we change that, and that's where we are. All right, this was a good meeting.
All right, well, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
All right.
Okay,
Bye.
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 Have a good one.
Okay.